Dude, just a heads up, I'm heading out for a job. I'll be back late. Well, NPC, real quick. What movie do you think I should review next? Alright, what are you thinking of seeing? Well, right now it's a toss-up between The Princess Bride and Song of the Sea. Really? You're doing this again? Doing what? I haven't reviewed either of these yet. That's not what I mean, and you know it. Ever since Twilight, you've been doing nothing but easy movies or good adaptations. And the one bad one you did was Gulliver's Travels, and you didn't even get that pissed off at it. When's the next time you're gonna let yourself get really angry at a movie? Well, I yelled a little bit in the Jungle Book. Crimson. Alright, fine, I've been taking it easy. But Raim is still out there. If I get pissed off, he'll just come back. Well, then we beef up security and get you ready. You beat him once before, you can do it again, right? Well, maybe. You can't just hide here and hope he never finds you. That's letting him control your show. Yeah, you're right. And what about all those really bad movies out there that your fans want you to review? Are you gonna let them down? No, I'm not. Are you gonna let Raim run your life? No, I'm not. And are you gonna review a really bad movie? Yes, I am! Good, here's Jonah Hex. What? Ow! Hello and welcome to The Book Was Better, where we're watching today's movies one book at a time. And I'm not sure how I got roped into another comic book review. Let's be honest, my last attempt at reviewing a comic adaptation wasn't my best effort. However, I think I've grown enough as a critic that I can tackle something like this for real now. And studying a hero who has a much shorter career than Green Lantern helps. That's not to say Jonah Hex doesn't have a storied history. Reading up on some of the things he's done was nothing short of fascinating. Jonah Hex is a 19th century bounty hunter with a keen eye, steady aim, and a strong moral code. He's an old DC Universe character who belonged in the Western era of comics the company put out in the 1970s. Think Cowboy version of Batman. And speaking of Batman, Jonah Hex has made appearances on Batman the Animated Series, Batman the Brave and the Bold, Justice League Unlimited, and Legends of Tomorrow. And that's without looking at what he did in his comic era. He fought a bear with only a knife and won. He went up against a T-Rex using only his revolvers. He even served in the Black Lantern Corps during the Blackest Night event. And probably most impressive, he beat Batman in combat. The guy is a certified badass.
Why are you doing this?
Because I don't like you, or your kind. Excuse me.
No! The hydrogen cells!
Jonah Hex first appeared in All-Star Western No. 10 and was created by John Albano and Tony DeZuniga. He later appeared in his own standalone series called Jonah Hex, which lasted for 92 issues. He was created to be an anti-hero, and his gruff nature and signature facial scar added to that persona. He also had a rough life growing up, with an abusive father, getting sold into slavery, and fighting in the American Civil War. But despite all that, he has a very noble code of ethics, dedicated to justice and protecting the innocent. Though if you cross him, he will fuck you up.
Drinks around the house.
The live-action movie of Jonah Hex came out on June 18th, 2010, and it sucked. Enjoying a nice 12% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, Jonah Hex was a tremendous box office bomb, not even making a measly $11 million and costing more than 4 times that to create. Josh Brolin stars as the titular character, with a supporting cast of John Malkovich, Michael Fassbender, and a sentient pair of breasts. Look, I'm sorry, but can anyone honestly tell me that Megan Fox is hired for her talent and not her looks? The movie was widely panned, earning 2 Razzie nominations, including Worst Couple between Megan Fox's accent and Josh Brolin's face. And no, I'm not being facetious. So how ugly is this movie? Nope, uglier than that. This is Jonah Hex.
This here's my story.
So the movie opens in the best way possible, by showing you fight scenes from the Civil War.
time.
Ha! Yeah, I wish. In about a year, this joke will have lost all impact. The movie opens for real on some Union and Confederate battles, while Josh Brolin waxes poetically about, I don't know, the weight of choice or something. He goes on for like a minute and a half, and the most I got out of it was, I made a choice and got fucked over for it. Jonah Hex wakes up to his wife and son being murdered by his old commanding officer from the Confederacy, Quentin Turnbull, played by John Malkovich.
You killed the only family I had.
General, please don't do this.
Betrayed your own men, and you murdered my son.
I'm begging you, sir. I'm begging you.
So Hex's family is burned alive and he gets branded and left for dead. And this is the first of many pointless changes they made for this adaptation. Although Hex did have a wife and son, neither of them died in a house fire. Instead, they just left him. In fact, Hex's son Jason grew up and eventually had a son of his own, Woodson Hex II, named after Jonah's father. Actually, why don't we bring back the counting gag to see how many stupid choices the writing staff made? The movie cuts to a simple animation that further butchers Hex's past. Members of the Crow Indian tribe rescue and revive him, using mystic magic to do so.
Those medicine men did what they could to bring me back, but somehow they just couldn't get me all the way out. Didn't make me immortal, just left me with the curse of knowing the other side.
And this leads us to perhaps the dumbest fucking thing in the movie, but you'll just have to wait to see more of it. We cut to Hex dragging a few bodies into town, as you do. They're criminals and he's looking to collect on their bounties. And this is the first time we really get to see Jonah Hex's famous scar.
Jonah Hex.
Okay, if the movie does one thing right, it's that scar. I'm not gonna say that it's the best they could have done. Quite frankly, I've seen more intimidating versions of Hex in animation, but we're not dealing with a cartoon here. I'm pretty sure Josh Brolin wasn't willing to lose an entire cheek to play one part in an 80-minute box office bomb. So with that in mind, I think the makeup department did a good job. Oh, also the sheriff tried to betray Hex because he's an idiot, so Hex slaughtered half the town in a shootout. It's a good thing this horse is already dead! One blown up building later and we have our hero for the evening. Are you interested in this character or his story? Really? Not even a little bit? Our next scene shows a train hijacking, complete with suicide bombers and the murder of a squadron of soldiers and a car full of innocent civilians. Let's talk about narrative hooks. The hook is the beginning of a story that's used to get you invested in the story and or the characters early. In this way, Jonah Hex has two hooks, one being the scene we just saw introducing Hex as he currently is, and the second being the massacre on the train, introducing the movie's story. And here's my problem with it. There is no need for Turnbull to go this far, especially when his rationale is never disclosed. He hates the northern states and will go to horrible lengths to murder the innocent. Fine, but why does he go that far? What's his end goal? Burn half the country? The movie never tells us! It's like they just wanted to write in a villain quickly, and what's easier to hate than a terrorist? He wasn't written this way to drive at the audience's emotions. He was written this way because the writers wanted a cheap, easy solution. Now, you can absolutely write terrorism into a movie or show when you actually have something to say! 24 did it with incredible talent. But terrorism can be so easily overdone, especially when it blindsides you in what's otherwise advertised as a simple Western. Look, they literally have suicide vests. And before anyone says I'm overthinking this and that this is just a dramatic train robbery, this scene happens.
His Mexican slaves had a nickname for him. What was it?
Terrorista.
Terrorista.
And now my palate has been tainted, so I had to sit through another hour of this movie in spite. Shit pickle. With that unpleasantness out of the way, we return to Hex at a local watering hole, where another nameless jackass thinks he can take on Hex.
Hey, Hex!
What happened to your face?
myself shaving. What happened to yours?
We're never gonna get through this movie at this rate. Okay, my problem's with this scene. 1. Brolin's delivery was crap, thanks mostly to the delay in his response. Do you remember this scene from the trailer?
Hey, Hex, what happened to your face?
Cut myself shaving. What happened to yours?
That was better. 2. If you're gonna attack someone in a bar, why would you start with, what happened to your face? Did you have a follow-up comment after you stabbed him? Hey, what happened to your face? Because you... Oh shit, I had something for this. 3. Hex only has a revolver, but the nameless guy was rocketed through a window on the other side of the room. Not even a Desert Eagle, which can come with 50 caliber bullets, could do that. The way this guy flew, Hex would have to use something like a 120 caliber round. And in case you didn't know, 120 caliber rounds aren't fired by handguns. They're fired by tanks. The scene moves on and we get to meet Megan Fox's character at long last. She's a prostitute. She's also a hooker in the movie. I'm sorry, it slipped.
Look how many times you've been shot. Which one was the first one?
I don't recall first or last.
I don't recall. This one number 1. This can be number 2. Three.
Ladies, do you want to turn your guy on? Just count the gunshot wounds in his chest. This just serves to set up some cheap, unnecessary romance for the two characters. Fox's character is later revealed to be Tallulah Black, who did exist in the comics, but was nothing like this. Tallulah wasn't some talking pair of breasts, she was a badass, was heavily scarred, and had her eye shot out. For all intents and purposes, she was basically the female version of Jonah Hex. The only thing that Tallulah and Fox really have in common is that they both work as prostitutes. So that's another unwanted change, which means... The US Army bursts in and informs Hex that Quentin Turnbull is alive and caused the train crash. Hex is told that he'll be given amnesty for any crimes he's ever committed, including killing the sheriff and half of that one town from earlier. I'll give the movie credit, at least it tried to make the character hook plot relevant. Usually those scenes are one big show-off moment that has no impact on later events. Hex is given some basic information, which the army got out of one of Turnbull's lackeys, who died during the interrogation.
Who will talk to him?
He's dead, Hex.
Yeah, I'll have a word with him all the same.
And this leads into the movie's biggest mistake.
How you doing there?
What's happening to me?
Afraid you're dead, friend.
Ah, yes. Hex's ability to temporarily revive the dead when he touches them. Now that was made canon in issue nothing! Because the writers just pulled this out of their asses! Hex doesn't have superpowers. He's a dead shot, he's a strategist, he's a champion brawler, but he's not a fucking mystic. Did the writers think, hey, his name is Hex. Hex means curse, so he must have some twisted dark magic, right? That's stupid and you're stupid for thinking it! And the worst part is they don't even use it that creatively. In Harry Potter, magic seamlessly weaves itself in and out of everyday life. Abilities and spells don't define who the characters are, they enrich who the characters are, like Harry being able to speak Parseltongue. With Hex, it's just the opposite. Throughout the movie, he interrogates 2 dead guys, then kills one guy, brings them back to life, just to kill him again. With the exception of the last example, Hex's powers only exist for narrative convenience. They don't enrich his character, they give him an easy out. The powers then become entirely irrelevant to his character, and he's no step closer to becoming interesting. This idea was so stupid it's worth 2 points on the bad adaptation count. Through talking to the dead guy, Hex learns that Turnbull is laying low in South Carolina. And that hint is just vague enough to mean something. But before we get there, we're treated to a forced interlude out of nowhere. Were you wondering how Hex got his signature scar when all Turnbull did was brand him? Well... This is so fucking stupid. Hex actually got his scar when he was branded with the Mark of the Demon. I won't go into detail since it's kind of a lengthy story, but he pissed off an Apache tribe and had half his face burned, which also blinded him in his right eye. Added to the count. Turnbull's right-hand man, Burke, picks up a shipment of cannonballs to use in Turnbull's master scheme. But these are no ordinary balls.
Pretty orange balls.
But be careful.
Wouldn't want to drop them.
I don't know, I can think of a few dandies in this flick who need their balls to drop. I am not above making testicle jokes! Hex continues his inspection, presumably somewhere in South Carolina, where he meets an old comrade at a fighting ring.
Nice pastime you got here, Colonel.
Hex.
And then, for some reason, the camera keeps jumping to the fight in progress down below, even though it is perfectly irrelevant to the exposition both characters are spouting. Why? Is the main character so boring that even the cameraman can't focus on him?
You put your best friend in the grave. You betrayed your regiment. For what? Honor? There's no honor in war.
Hey, you remember that fight scene in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie where the main character actually fought and then we got to learn more about how he thinks because of it? And how it was awesome? None of that happens here. The only thing we learn is that Hex should go talk to Turnbull's son, who Hex killed in the war. This is something that Hex could have come up with on his own in another scene. So this entire sequence is completely pointless. Apparently I'm not above stealing jokes either. Okay, there is one thing that happens in that scene. Hex saves a dog who proceeds to follow him through the rest of the movie. The dog doesn't do anything to help, he's just a dog. End scene. Hex resurrects his old buddy Jeb. No. And Hex learns that Turnbull is laying low at a place called Fort Resurrection. But before he gets there, Hex stops by a smithy run by his buddy, played by Lance Reddick.
You get uglier every time I see you.
Seriously, this guy does not get enough work. Hex stopped by to get some new equipment, including these dynamite crossbows. And then this line happens.
You and I both know the only reason you fought for the South is you ain't like being told what to do by the government. You ain't never believed in secessionism. And you ain't never believed in slavery neither.
Okay, I run the risk of flack rising up from the comment section for this, but I believe my fans are mature enough not to cause a senseless political flame war over something this petty. With that said, this line is a lie! Yes, Jonah Hex fought for the South in the American Civil War, but he did so because he cared about his friends in the Confederate Army. He hated slavery and even surrendered to Union soldiers on 2 occasions. Putting him in the Confederate Army was a design choice in making him an anti-hero. This is something that would normally make him the bad guy aesthetically, but coupled with his strict moral code, made him something more complex. The same thing can be said about Batman, and look at how popular he is. He fights in the dark and uses fear to control his enemies, but he's considered one of the biggest good guys in the DCU. In fact, Jonah Hex was one of the first comic book anti-heroes, and it worked pretty well in his favor. The movie tries to force this apologetics message to make Hex more likable, but like so many other scenes, it's wedged in because the hack writers couldn't think of a better way to express it. Here's an idea. Have Hex admit his intentions when he resurrects Jeb, his best friend from the war. Yeah, that still relies on the resurrection bullshit, so if Jeb isn't a good angle to try, you could use literally any other friend Hex had. And that whole goddamn mess means we add one more to the count. Hex begins his mission against Turnbull in Fort Resurrection and almost immediately learns what Turnbull's evil plan is.
Do you know who Eli Whitney was?
After he invented the cotton gin and started the Industrial Revolution, he went to work for the U.S. military, special projects. He pioneered the use of component parts and firearms, new combustibles for munitions, and more or less, he single-handedly invented modern warfare. So as an exercise, they asked him to design a super weapon.
How? That is the stupidest... Really? Ugh. Hey Eli Whitney, you know how you built a machine to separate seeds from cotton fibers? Well, we want you to build a thermobaric bomb and a launching platform for it. Those are basically the same things, right? What fucking moron thought that plot point up? Did you just pick the first inventor you could think of and then turn him into a mad scientist for no discernible reason? Yes, Eli Whitney did design muskets and cannons for the US government after he built the cotton gin, but assuming he can jump from small arms to what is effectively a massive ordnance airburst bomb is fucking bullshit! And of course, Turnbull plans on using it on a major national holiday, another common terrorist tactic, and he plans to assassinate President Grant with it. Wait. This is a Western-style movie in which some evil git is using a bullshit superweapon to kill President Grant. Do you know what this is? This is just a rehash of Wild Wild West, but without Will Smith. And with a gun that shoots Moabs instead of a giant walking spider. God, this is stupid! So Hex rushes in to kill Turnbull using his dynamite crossbows, and the movie is accidentally awesome for a few seconds. The movie then tries to redeem itself by having the obnoxious Irish guy get the upper hand on Hex.
Hex! Jonah bloody Hex!
Hex is forced to retreat, but do you notice something off about this fight scene? That's right, it's so dark you can barely see anything. I swear, I didn't do anything to the footage. This is really the final product. People made fun of the fight scenes in Birdemic, but at least there you could tell what was going on. So some random tribe heals Hex from a point-blank shotgun blast to the chest by making him barf up a raven. Not sure how that helps, but whatever. Meanwhile, Burke somehow found out that Megan Fox and Hex have a thing for each other and kidnaps Fox. I have no idea how he knew that, and the movie never graces us with an answer. However, we do get a rematch between Burke and Hex.
Tell me, what's it like to go through life with a face like that?
Let me show you.
Did his blood catch fire? Does he have gasoline for blood, or is he so sauced up that his insides are flammable? Also, if it seems like I'm speeding through the climax, it's only because I'm really bored. Hex eventually gets captured and put on Turnbull's ship, where they plan to launch the weapon from to murder President Grant and everyone listening to his centennial speech. However, along the way...
2,000 yards to target, sir! Yankee cutter, downriver!
You are now under custody of the military of the United States of America.
They'd run into a ship piloted by the military, but again, the scene is so dark that I can't tell if they're on a sub or a destroyer or what. In a move that should have put an immediate rush on his timetable, Turnbull orders the enemy ship destroyed using the super weapon. Instead, after this massive explosion takes out the USS, I don't know, they seem to be in no hurry. Why? Did no one on shore notice that massive explosion capable of taking out an entire village? For comparison, this is the 5th Antares rocket launch failure as seen from a mile away. And the subsequent sound wave. Everyone on shore should have seen that explosion, especially in the dark, and half the people in the States should have heard it. Is everyone outside the main cast conveniently deaf and blind? Hex and Megan Fox get free, because of course they do, and both of them go about taking over the ship. And this goes into one of the worst final fight scenes I've ever seen, complete with multiple shots of a really hollow metaphor. But even though we have better lighting for this scene, I still can't tell what the hell's going on. What you're watching is unedited footage, but I can't tell who's grappling who or where everything is in relation to everything else. Half the fight scenes in this movie are a joke. The ones that you can see aren't really important, but the ones you cannot see would be better off with subtitles describing the action. Turnbull eventually fires an initial volley at the speech grounds, but before he can detonate the ordnance, Hex blocks the loading mechanism, which causes the whole device to jam, and eventually the whole ship explodes because of it. I expect they had much more ordnance on board, so this explosion should have been much larger, but whatever. The movie wraps itself up, and Hex rides off into the distance. And the movie does what it should have done from the beginning, and sets itself on fire. The end. Oh my god, how do you fuck up that badly? I fully admit, I don't have that much exposure to the character of Jonah Hex, and I haven't read any of the original comics. For this review, I just read Jonah Hex, A Face Full of Violence, written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Justin Gray, with art by Luke Ross and Tony DiZuniga. The book was a collection of short stories, with fantastic art and great characters. Hex stood out as a badass always fighting for the right thing, and if he couldn't have it, he got revenge for those who were wronged, sometimes extremely violently. I had a lot of fun reading this book in particular, and the research I did made Hex seem like a really underappreciated antihero. Reading more of his stories would not be a bad call. Jonah Hex, A Face Full of Violence, gets a 4 out of 5. The movie was the total opposite. Badly paced, badly shot, and badly thought out. You can't even tell what's going on in most of the darker scenes. My guess is that the lighting crew was trying to make everything look like it was lit by torches, and they did this by using actual torches. This wouldn't be so bad if half the movie weren't set at night. Seriously, what was the crew thinking? Was this a movie for blind people? There are smidges of talent hidden here and there, like the makeup, and Josh Brolin's acting wasn't bad considering what he had to work with, but everything else came up short. And speaking of short, this movie has a total runtime of 81 minutes, but that includes 8 whole minutes of credits. Just look at how slowly they're scrolling by. This was done intentionally to meet the feature-length requirement. The actual film is only 73 minutes long. I don't know what the hell happened behind the scenes to cause such vapid ineptitude, but I'm surprised that half the credits aren't filled with Alan Smithies. Seriously, how do you fuck up Cowboy Batman? The movie gets a 1 out of 5. Comic movies are more popular than ever now, with some raking in hundreds of millions of dollars. But with DC constantly churning out one disappointment after another, it's no wonder why Marvel is absolutely destroying them in the box office, at least in terms of live action films. The writing in this movie was so awful that I'm working under the belief that the script was created with just Cowboy and Ugly Scar in the original notes. Some of Hex's character came through, but with a shockingly short runtime, this movie had no chance. And giving Hex superpowers? God damn it, people, were you trying to alienate fans? As an adaptation, Jonah Hex gets a 1 out of 5. Although this wasn't part of DC's big push into the Justice League movies, it still serves as a black mark on their record. But who cares about that? Civil War is out! Also, we're going to revamp the theme song soon. Stay tuned for that.